All right, guys. If you guys could just make sure you're muted really quick before I start. All right. Okay. So, all right. So, since I was just a kid, I always wanted to do something special with my life, something that could change the world. Um, and as I got older, I realized that one way I could do that was to fight for the country that I loved. So when I was 18, I decided to enlist in the military. Um, And today I'll be telling my story of enlisting, some hardships I went through, and how I ended up benefiting from those hardships in the end. So the first thing I realized was um, enlisting was a lot easier said than done. I had talked about doing it for a really long time, but when it came time to actually do it, I was very, very nervous. And what also made it even more difficult to do was that it was not what my family wanted for me at all. Um, the last thing they wanted to see was me in danger all the time. But besides those two things, I still knew that it would be beneficial for me in the end. Another thing that I realized even faster was that was the least of my worries um, through my time in the military. The first thing that I did was I was sent to basic training where I was pushed to my mental and physical limits like I'd never been before. I also dealt with homesickness because I had never been away from my friends' family for any really length of time. Um, and then it got even harder. I was deployed overseas after basic, where conditions were way, way, way worse. And I saw things that no human should ever have to see in their lives. And um, one of the hardest things for me in general was dealing with the constant loss of the brothers who fought by my side throughout that entire time. Um, and even though those are so hard to deal with, I actually found some benefits sort of in going through those things. One thing that I learned to do was deal with my stress and anxiety, and I did that both in combat and just in life in general. The way I did that was I learned to fall back on my training and like realize that I was overqualified for the situation that I had been in and that I trained so hard to be there. So I knew that I was ready to be there and um, to trust my instincts because I was ready. Another thing that I started doing was reading because I had a lot of alone time. And one of my favorite reads from my time in the military was "It Takes What It Takes" by Trevor Mowad. And a quote from that book, which was published on February 4th of 2020, is thinking about all 26.2 miles is overwhelming, but thinking about the next few steps is manageable. And it's really sticks with me because it points out the fact that you can't run a marathon in one step. So all you can do is focus about the next step and focus about the moment that you're in right now. And that's really helpful for me and a lot of people, honestly, because all you can really change is the present. You can't change the future. You can't change the past. So if you can't change any of that, you should just focus on the present. Um, So even though, I struggled with enlisting and I went through all those hardships, I still came out on the other end, I think, a much better and much stronger, both physically and mentally person. And one more quote that I'd like to end out with was this was in Viktor E. Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which he wrote in 1946. And the quote reads, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." Thank you.